Hi everyone, welcome to a new Purpose People podcast. I'm sitting on the sofa here with Darrell, Irwin.
Hello.
And we're going to talk a little bit about purpose in business. So Darrell, welcome. Thanks for coming today to your house.
To my house. Yeah. Back on the sofa. But it's good to just talk a little bit about purpose, I guess, in business. I think would be a good time to share and talk.
Yeah. So there was a bestseller about 20 years ago called The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren.
Yeah.
So how does what we're talking about today differ from what Rick kind of said in his bestseller? I don't know if you've read. Have you read The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren?
Interesting stat of that certainly after that book was written, they made all the dignitaries or the essentially the government within the White House, all the workers read that book. And I think the main thing, the overriding thing, I think it's 40 days on purpose and asking life's deeper questions. And I think what it did is it by reading that book, it gets you more focused on that you're there to serve in life. And ultimately, government should serve. And I think what we've seen certainly in the last 10 years, maybe more, can be argued. But it's that sense of the service level's been forgotten and wanting to be served is the thing. So the government, to some degree, is more, rather than serving the people, is more about serving self. And, you can vote right, left, Conservative, Labour. At the end of the day, public office is about serving the public. And, if you measure that as a judgment, where the purpose-driven life works is that your purpose in life is to add value, not take value. And in you adding value, then obviously you'll be able to give value back. Or value will come back your way. So, if you ask for help and you've been kind, then chances are it's going to be reciprocal. So the purpose-driven life really was about living the purpose-driven life. It certainly talks about a world and a life bigger than yourself. So aspects of faith were discussed in there. But it's, we're here for a purpose, ultimately, is what the book was about. And being there for a purpose. Your life should be lived on purpose because you're here to serve and find the people that you can do the best service to in life.
Yeah, cool. So how does a business with purpose at its core, how does it look?
Yeah. So in business, you obviously offering a service. Or you're offering a product, but even the product should serve a need. And I think what often happens is we forget why the business exists, as in to solve a problem or to meet a need. And we just get focused on making money. And I think a purpose-driven business makes a decision that why the business was formed in the first place is not forgotten. I call it like alignment for the assignment, where you start something, you do it for 3, 4, 5 years, and then you lose sight of why you started. So basically then you start making decisions based on circumstance rather than the conviction of why it was started. And that's what I call mission drift. So mission drift means that if you're about 1 degree out, over time, you're going to be 8, 9, 10 different degrees. So if you imagine 2 things traveling parallel and they're 1 degree out, if you travel parallel a long period of time, that's the original mission or vision, let's say, and you've drifted. So you call it mission drift. So it's the gap in between that is created. So a purpose-driven business is always reminding itself regularly of why it started in the first place, who it's looking to serve, and beginning to essentially help people get the very best out of what product or service that's being offered. And the purpose-driven business for me is one that just remains focused on why they started in the first place.
Yeah. So if there's a business and it was started off with good intentions, with a passion, but it's drifted slightly, and its sole purpose has become, because obviously the marketplace is difficult for a lot of businesses nowadays. So, and the day in and day out thing is to just try and survive and make money. How would you advise somebody to keep that purpose at the heart of in the middle of trying to just survive and make ends meet?
Yeah, and again, I think what the pandemic did for many people is put us into survival mode. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have been in that survival mode for quite a while. The brave part of that conversation is to say, well, actually, I don't want to do life chasing money, but how do I chase impact first and income takes care of itself? And I think as business owners, at any point, you can get completely focused on the money, because in tough times, spend gets stopped. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm losing customers. People aren't spending as freely as they once did. But the companies that win really then double down on purpose. And I think the best place to start, in a sense, is to go back to why you started and see the activities that you're doing, the core activity, and then see what other activities that you're doing that made sense, but almost, again, mission drift.
Yeah.
So sometimes you might have to shrink the remit of that you've got back to core principles because you diversify too much in the good times. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So Cre8ion, for example, we were working with, we'd done website building and we were doing a lot of software work. So, but Cre8ion ultimately are a brand marketing agency. So we were in a situation where we made a decision that the software side of thing wasn't core and is actually beginning to detract to what we're about. Because people would say, well, what are you? Are you a software company, or are you a branding agency, whatever? So we then went back and said, right, let's refine the message. And during the pandemic, we come up with the 4 key things with the Purpose Playbook, which I'll go into in a minute. But it was then a very easy decision saying, if we're about storytelling, if we're about reaching people, if we're about helping people, then our key thing has to be, well, what sits outside of it that doesn't fit? And ultimately, the software made more sense to be a company in itself.
Yeah.
And circumstances in the end came our way because our lead developer was headhunted. And long story short is that we both become business partners in starting a software company.
Yeah.
So people can go, digital is clearly a software company, and Cre8ion is clearly a branding agency. And so sometimes it's not necessarily that you go back, but you might, as an entrepreneur, might have to start something else to facilitate that dream, or you have to make a decision and change things.
Cool. So you're an entrepreneur. You've started, so far you're in the process of starting 12 businesses.
Yeah.
Got 4 going really well already.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose which is sustaining you through this journey? Are they all different, or is there something at the core of everything that you do?
Yeah, the key thing for me is everyone's got a purpose. Everyone's got a plan. And in order to facilitate that, they need core components to make that happen. And so whether it's a brand, or whether it's software, whether it's connections, or whether it's just, being happier, healthier, smarter, and kinder with humans, those sorts of things all fit around the aspect of purpose. So for me, my purpose is helping people discover their purpose and then help them facilitate and give them all the tools to be able to live it out.
Yeah.
So my purpose is essentially helping people discover why they're here.
Okay.
You could do anything on earth.
Yeah.
And why you do what you do. We have some great podcast guests where we've had people talking about, filmmaking, or we've had Sean talking about, giving to the homeless and turning adversity or seemingly dead ends into positive things and giving back. Because ultimately, the best marketing strategy in the world is to care.
Yeah.
And if you care about your audience, if you care about the people that you serve, then you'll do your best work. And ultimately, that's what we're doing, saying, what is your purpose? Who are the people that you care most about? And then begin to help them.
So what started off this journey for you at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I've shared about my skills, talents, abilities being used for bad, working in a marketing agency and, essentially working with companies that end people's life rather than celebrate them.
Yeah.
And long story short, we built Cre8ion and it was running and it was doing its thing. But what I realized is the tools and the things that we put in place before the pandemic were really good. They told a story and helped craft out or tease out what was in someone. And I think what happened with Cre8ion is that we went through this thing of our core product was a marketing workshop. And we changed it to the Purpose Playbook.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we then asked more deep, purposeful questions that ensured that every business that come across our path, we were absolutely certain that they knew what their purpose was. So we have branded companies and clients and even come up with their mission, vision, and values, so to speak, I would say, to present them really well, but not ask too much deeper questions to the actual CEO or the business owner or the founders. Although we got their story, we didn't go. I don't think we were going as deep as we could do. And what the Purpose Playbook did is really say, well, let's really deep dive on you so you never forget it. You know, we talked about mission drift. It was like, no, we want to make sure that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. So in tough times, you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that for me then, with the Purpose Playbook at the core of what Cre8ion did, it was like every company that we work with needs this in their business.
Yeah.
And so the businesses that I run now, they've all been through that process as well.
Yeah.
You know, obviously I'm a founder of Cre8ion, but I'm a co-founder in other companies. So it's just making sure that we're on the same page from the get-go.
Yeah.
And so that was the key thing of saying, well, making a purposeful business, not making the mistakes that I made chasing the money, so to speak, and just constantly focused on impact-led. The best place to do that is at the start in formation, and then keep yourself accountable to what you wrote down.
Have you come across businesses which perhaps, like you said, have started simply because it's something they can do and they want to make cash from it, but they want to make it something more? Have you come across that before?
Yeah, we're coming across a lot of companies now coming out of the pandemic where they're saying there's got to be more to life than just making cash and making money. And even in the education world, you know, they're all about legacy now. They're asking those much deeper questions. And I think that's the biggest thing that's changed. I think when I used to speak purpose and speak about it, people would look at me a little bit like, oh, it's a bit wishy-washy or a bit whoa-whoa. But it's become a really core tenet now of being, and obviously movements like B Corp and things like that have really pushed it through. And it doesn't matter whether you're in music or whether you're in sport. Ultimately, purpose is, I wouldn't say a buzzword. I think we've just been reawoken to why we do what we do. Yeah. You know, I think we always, if you look at life maybe 30, 40, maybe longer, 50 years ago, let's say, I always still think it's like 2000s. Right? But like, let's look at the end of the war or during the war. There was that very much an aspect of, you know, we're all in this together and we're going to go and deliver and we're going to fight for our country, so to speak. And then what we've done is we've become this product of comfort where the war was won and and now we've just become consumers and we don't think about our impact. It's all about comfort and how do we look after ourselves. And I think we've probably gone so far comfort now that actually through pandemic being uncomfortable has got us back to saying, actually, were we just wasting our life? Yeah. Scrolling, watching Netflix, watching box sets, you know, just existing, but not actually doing something worthwhile. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's changed, is that it's almost like we've been woken up to, actually, we can make a difference. You know, we can make a difference with things that were going on in Ukraine, for example, and begin to help or take families on board. It's like pulling people back to, actually, we can make a difference.
So you talked about the Purpose Playbook. Yeah. So obviously you don't want to give too much away. People can come, but how do you help somebody to discover their purpose?
Yeah. So the Purpose Playbook is based around 4 key areas. It's belief, belief, belong, best and beyond. They're the 4 things. Now, those 4 things we believe, and I think it's proven, having worked with so many companies on it, is if you've got those 4 key tenets in your business, you won't lose your identity. And identity is more than just a logo. It's a message. Yep. And websites, branding, let's say, is all as a result of essentially presenting what that message looks like. So belief is around mission, vision, and values. And it's amazing, having worked with lots of companies, is that some have no mission, vision, and values. Some have a vision and not a mission. Some have values, but no mission or vision. And ultimately, you need all 3. Now, some people say, well, mission, vision, and values is a bit old hat, but I wouldn't say it's old hat. I just think you don't understand the full meaning of it. Sure. So I'll give you an example. Mission is why you exist. Yeah. Now, Simon Sinek's got this thing of knowing your why. And, you know, if you've not watched the YouTube video, you're probably one of the very few people in the world, especially entrepreneurship that hasn't. But he talks about companies that describe themselves, often describe what they do, or the next level describe how they do it. But very few companies explain why they do it.
Okay.
And so companies like Apple were really big on the why, hence why they managed to build a tribe. So a mission essentially is your why. It's why you exist. So why does you could do anything you want? Why does this business exist? And I say that's linked to purpose. You know, you're on the earth to do anything you are. You're going to start this business, but there's a purpose behind why you're going to do it. And if you can bring your purpose into that business, it becomes a catalyst. Vision, on the other hand, is essentially what does success look like? So if everything worked out really well, what does the end look like? So you just fast forward to the end and say, if I had all the money, all the resources and everything went well, what is it I'm trying to build? Yeah. So I use the example of NASA. So NASA, their why is to explore space, but their vision was to land on the moon. And so they landed on the moon. So now their vision is to land on Mars. So it's always unfolding. Vision can scale and grow, but it never loses sight of the why. Okay. You know, as in to explore space. The values, on the other hand, are where you make your decisions. It's what forms the culture of your team. So you can reward against values and you can discipline against values. And often when people are running businesses or running teams, they get into trouble because they've got no values to frame the conversation. So then it becomes a personal attack. Okay. You're always late. Right. So they go, I'm always late. Yeah. Whereas if you go, well, one of our values is integrity and we start at 9 o'clock and you're turning up at 9:15, it's breaking the value. Now it's not a personal attack. It's just, this is what we all agreed and bought into.
It's the value system of the culture.
And so values really help you recruit. Yeah. You know, so if you've got a certain common set of values, like ours are people, purpose, planet, then when you've got those, do people care about those things? If they don't, that's fine. There might be another company that you'll be out, but people is not your priority. Does that make sense? Or purpose isn't your priority. You just think that's fine. Yeah. You know, or, you know, planet, it's all a load of rubbish. Then that's fine. And by the way, if you've got struggling with climate change and that sort of stuff, I just say this, what about good stewardship, regardless of what your beliefs are? You know, chucking bottles and plastic in the ocean is bad. End of story. Yeah. You know, so you got to look at it that way, that the values essentially keep the vision and mission together, keeps us remained onto our why. It keeps us focused on where we're headed, but keeps the team together. And so for me, a successful organization must have all those things to succeed. So that's the belief. So what it does is it creates belief internally and it creates belief externally. So when people see you, they begin to see your people. Yeah. So the amount of times that I've done filming with different people, or you've gone out and filmed, the comments have come back to me to say, you can tell they work for you. Not because this is about me, but you guys have the same mannerism in terms of you're there, you show up, you're really interested in people. Yeah. You know, you're interested in the purpose of why we're doing it, and obviously being good to the environment around us. So that's what happens when you have those three things in place, that your brand speaks louder than the graphics on the page. Your behaviors begin to get seen. So ultimately values are behaviors, you know, the behaviors that you want to see, or the behaviors that you desire, and the behaviors that you admire. So that's belief. Yeah. The second pillar is belong. Yes, thanks for that. The second pillar is belong. And basically it's finding your tribe to thrive. And you just need to know that the people that you can do life with, or you do your best work for, you want to work for them. Yeah. So you might have a client list of 15 clients, but I guarantee that if you don't look at your client list regularly, you'll have your favorites. You know, you have ones that you kind of really enjoy, and there's a few on there that you struggle with. You know, not all the time, but you might struggle with. And often the ones that we struggle with, again, is a representation of that they might not fit us. So we used to work for a company, and the statement was, we want to make as much money as possible. And I remember when I first heard it, having worked for them for a while, I was thinking, no, we weren't completely in control of that client because we were in a collaborative environment. But what it did is it began to show me that actually, although this was a good client for us and it paid well, they probably wouldn't be a long-term client for us, because ultimately things would change, because they would make decisions based on how to make the most money quickly. Yeah. So basically what belong does is begin to look at people's frustrations. It begins to look at their motivations. It begins to look at their age and demographics.
Yeah.
Because we all see life differently. So if you're younger, you could argue a millennial, you'll be more motivated by experiences rather than things.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. Generation Y, if they get a bonus, they'll probably spend it on an experience. They go on holiday or go and do something. A Generation X gets a bonus, they'll probably buy something. It'd be a watch or the deposit for a car. So they measure stuff by stuff. Now, I'm not saying, I don't want to fall into this, that the generation following is better than the next, but we just do life differently because of the education that we're from and whatever. But understanding that really helps you frame how you can help someone. Yeah. So for instance, cause is a really big thing for millennials and them wanting to work. Yeah. They want to get paid well, of course, but causes, they're more than likely take $2,000 less to go and work for a company that's making an impact rather than to take $2,000 more or $5,000 more working for a company that essentially polluting the ocean, for example. So those are the sorts of things that when you understand belonging, that everyone wants to belong to something like a movement and create one, and then brand the belong piece is an underplayed card. You know, we kind of have a database of like an Excel spreadsheet or a CRM. And, you know, if you can create a tribe around that, it's alive, like a Facebook group or something like that, it just brings life. Or a podcast following where you're talking to them, all of a sudden that just becomes a much deeper, a much more engaging crowd of people that you work with and then you can share life with. So belief is one thing, but belonging is a second thing. So a successful brand has to belong.
Awesome.
All right.
Belief, belong, best.
Best, yeah. So best is essentially it's your value proposition.
Yeah.
So what's in it for me? So ultimately people still want to know what's in it for me, but it's also having your clients tell the story about the impact that you've made. So if you've got a brand and you've got 15 people that work with you telling you how great you are and how you've changed their business, that's more powerful than me saying it.
Yeah, definitely.
So the one ways we do it, we use it, and I won't give it all away, but you can find it if you wanted to, is the Hollywood method. So the Hollywood method is, the Hollywood have a way of telling stories. And when you understand the formula, you just get used to it. And like, for instance, a Marvel movie is really formulaic. Yeah. So there's a thing called all is lost. Yeah. There's an all is lost moment. It's normally about an hour and a half through a movie where everything just goes wrong. And there's music slow and there's all hope. And then some bright spark comes up with an idea and then they turn the whole thing around in 30 minutes. Yeah. When you know that, you can tell that same story in your brand or your product or service that you're giving to people. So I use this example of, we often, as a company, when we're working with someone, we want to be the hero. Yeah. But ultimately, no, you're not. They're the hero. Where you came into the story is that at that all is lost moment, you were the Mr. Miyagi or the Obi-Wan Kenobi that turned the situation round with your wisdom and advice to elevate them to where they need to get to. Okay. Yeah? So, because it's been said it's known as the hero story, but then everyone thinks, oh, we're the hero. No, you're not the hero. They are the hero. The client that you're serving are the hero. So tell the story. Say where they went wrong without you, when they got to the all is lost moment, how they met you, and then what changed, and now the benefits from that. That's a more powerful story. So my advice for there, when you're talking about the best, what makes you best in the marketplace, is understanding that, understanding that story of how you could be the Mr. Miyagi or the Obi-Wan Kenobi in that situation. And then I guess the last one is beyond. And beyond, really, it's a legacy piece. And the best way you can do that, I use this example that if you struggle to find the cause, just find the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah. There's enough causes in those 17. You only need to pick 3 to make you more of a purposeful organization. Yeah. One of them is goal 3, which is good health and well-being, and Cre8ion do that from the point of view of doing a 4-day work week.
Cool.
So we got a lot of our team, we've got young kids, so they've got the ability to have an extra day off.
Yeah.
If the kids are a little bit older and are at school, then they're at home with their partner or whatever to just enjoy life. So that's the sustainable development goals. And you can fast forward it much further than that with a guy that I know called Andy Hawkins that really helped us get our B Corp status.
Yeah.
And that stands for companies that are for business, for profit, and for purpose. And I see that as the fair trade for business, like fair trade for coffee. You do that. So that's what we help businesses have. And then the ultimate thing is we do like a vision board for the business.
Yeah.
And then we just make sure that's in our document. So those 4 pillars essentially help you then build a really strong, compelling brand. And we haven't even talked about what color the logo is. And that's what brand is. It's more.
That's amazing. So
it's giving them a message.
Yeah. How many clients have you taken through this process now?
Well, I don't know. There's quite a few. Well, the thing is, I've done a few sessions as well with people in a room, so group. So I've done it to like 50 people in a group. I've done it online with 100 people. I've got a meeting in a few days with another group of people that I'm going to do it with. I don't know. I got to say a couple of hundred at least. Just because ultimately we're about giving impact. Yeah. So we can do one-to-one with a company, but there might be 7 people sat in that room. And then that person then leaves and then they give us a call saying, that Purpose Playbook that you did, can you do it in my new company? Yeah. Because it really set the tone for where the business is. Yeah. We work with a school, and certainly when we're talking mission, vision and values, and they found their mission, vision and values in a drawer at the bottom of a filing cabinet that they'd done like 20 years ago. and it was like, so there's your unity problem. No one knows what you exist and why you exist for. Yeah. And so when we work with them, we went from an unsatisfactory and special measures school and they become a good school and, became an academy as a result. So when you put those things in place, it's not just about the way things look. It really fixes the culture internally of a company. Yeah. And particularly when you involve the key players into it. So when I say how many have we done, I think how many people are impacted. Yeah. Then you could say we're over 1,000 or so people that we've impacted, maybe more now. Yeah. Because there's been 12 people in the room or 15 people in the room, or I've had 28 people in the room. Yeah. So you could say we've reached thousands as a result of doing that. And then they've taken principles of that somewhere else. We run Facebook challenges as well around mission, vision and values. We've done that over the pandemic, which is great. Just to help people clarify their why and what they want to really want to build. Now they've got that time. So that as a journey has enabled us to be, how do you put it? It's just enabled us to facilitate our vision, which is create impact by helping people discover their cause and then double down in on it.
Brilliant. So the guys watching today, is there anywhere they can find out more information, or if they want to if they've got a business or a company and they want to take part in the Purpose Playbook, or you can give them more information, where can they find more info on that?
Yeah. So on the Cre8ion website, we have a thing called the Purpose Playbook. There's a landing page there and it explains what we will cover.
Cre8ion with an A, isn't it?
Yeah. Cre8ion.co.uk.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you go on the website, I think it's under About, you click on there, you can get it on the homepage as well. And literally you can just get in touch and book yourself in. And then we will literally spend half a morning with you, going through it with some of our key guys, and you bring in your key people. We can do it in your building. You can come to us, or we can do it online, which we've done. We've done some in America as a result of it. But the idea is at the end of that session, we will then give you a clear mission, vision and values, know what your value proposition is, and then we'll build out some recommendations so you can you know what next looks like. And so we've worked recently with Mark Colburn, MBE. His website went live a few weeks ago, and just he knows what he's about. It's very purpose driven, but we just gave him the tools to articulate it succinctly. And it's not saying that everyone comes to us doesn't know what their purpose is. Some people are already living it, but they don't know how to articulate that to a cold audience, and that's what we do.
And there's probably a lot of testimonials from from the guys who've been through it as well.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
imagine.
yeah. So we've got there's a testimonial thing on our website, and actually there's a lot of people talking about, Purpose Playbook. We changed the name of a company, for example, and it's a company called Brave. Sarah Hickman, we worked with Sarah Hickman, and we worked with her and her business partner, and the thing there was that they always talked about their education tools, about being brave.
Yeah.
And they were doing a lot of others, and then they were mixing theirs in as well. And ultimately, we just said to them, you just need to be brave. And they were like, really? I said, well, why don't you name the company Brave? And that's what we did. And, it's really helped them rubber stamp and own that they are a brave company.
Yeah.
And I think it's wearebrave.co.uk, and they literally help people, teams deal with conflict and that sort of stuff.
Wow.
But it was them being brave first to adopt the name, and in adopting that name, then that basically gave them the confidence and the clarity to just get out there and really give people their very best of their tools that they dreamt up. But we're almost like, this is this, and do you want to use some of our stuff? When in fact, the other stuff was better than what they were doing.
Brilliant.
So they flipped it round. So the other stuff now supports, but they're leading with their Brave methodology, which has been really good.
Brilliant. Oh, awesome. Well, thanks, Darrell.
No worries.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. Really cool information. And yeah, if you want to find out more, cre8ion.co.uk. And also the Purpose People Facebook page as well, constantly being posted on then. So thanks for joining us today, Darrell.
No worries.
In your house.
Cool.
And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, man.